12th, 2022. And before we get into some housekeeping remarks, and I call this meeting to order, I also just want to say thank you once again to Commissioner Harnick for a great job that she did throughout all last year during the good times and the tough times. And you pulled us through, and we support you in that and appreciate all the good work you've done, Jen. And I only hope to meet your level of good work as I now conduct these meetings as the chair. So just once again, thank you, and staff, thank you for the good work you're doing as well. And let's hope for a better 2022 than a 2021, 2020. That's what we're hoping for moving forward. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and do some housekeeping remarks. But why don't we first call this meeting to order? Lisa?
Yes, roll call.
Yes, please.
District 1,
District 1 here.
District 2, here. District 3,
Here.
District 4,
Here.
District 5,
Here.
Banning,
Present.
Beaumont,
Here.
Blythe, Calamasa,
Here.
Canyon Lake,
Canyon Lake is here.
Cathedral City,
Here.
Coachella, Corona,
Present and accounted for.
Desert Hot Springs,
Present.
Eastvale,
Present.
Hemet,
Here.
Indian Wells,
Present.
Indio,
Present.
Rupa Valley,
Here.
La Quinta,
Here.
Lake Elsinore,
Here.
Menifee,
Menifee's here.
Marina Valley,
Marina Valley's here.
Marietta,
Here.
Norco, Norco, Palm Desert,
Here.
Palm Springs,
Present.
Paris, Rancho Mirage,
Here.
Riverside,
Up and ready.
San Jacinto, Temecula,
Marianne Edwards, sitting in for Mayor Matt Ron.
thank you, Wildemar,
Here.
Caltrans District 8,
Ray Dissel for Mike Botown.
thank you. We do have a quorum.
Thank you, Lisa. Now, this meeting is being conducted virtually in accordance with AB 361 due to state or local officials recommending measures to promote social distancing. With that said, thank you for participating in our remote meeting. We will do our best to facilitate a smooth meeting with public participation. Before we begin, I want to review some guidelines and general instructions for the meeting. Please silence your other communication devices, such as your cell or desk phone. This will ensure that we are not hearing any feedback or causing interruption during the meeting. After each agenda item, the chair will announce public comment. And as far as Zoom instructions, if you'd like to make public comment on the Zoom screen, please click on the raise hand button. If you are using Zoom on your smartphone, tap your screen, look for the more option, and then the raise hand button on the screen. For those calling in using the phone line only, you can dial *9 on your keypad to signal that you would like to comment. And so with that, this meeting is called to order. We did roll call. And Vice Chair, Mr. McGee, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely, sir. Please rise, place your hand over your heart, and follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner McGee. At this point, Are there any public comments? Under the Brown Act, the commission should not take action on or discuss matters raised during public comment portion of the agenda that are not listed on the agenda. Members of the public may make public comments when recognized by the chair. Each individual speaker is limited to speak 3 minutes continuously or less. Are there any public comments?
I do see a hand raised from Clarissa Cervantes.
Hello, Clarissa.
Hello, Chairman.
You have 3 minutes to speak. By all means.
Thank you so much. Let me lower my. Hello, good morning. I want to thank the Rctc Commission for giving me the opportunity to share a few words this morning. I wanted to just take a moment to bring to your attention some of my concerns as the Ward 2 Council member representing the City of Riverside. There is a project proposal that has come into my district, which is the Rctc expansion project. This is for the downtown Metrolink station, and there has been, I'm sure, a presentation that has come to you now and that came to our City Council this last December. The comments I wanted to share have been some concerns that I've heard from the community in terms of them providing feedback on the item. And I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware. From what I've understood in meetings with residents and constituents from Ward 2 and the City of Riverside, there has been some concerns that questions that have been raised around the project are not met with, I think, the openness and the transparency that the community would hope to receive. There has been some resistance, I think, from some of the individuals who have come out to give presentations to the community at some of our neighborhood meetings. And I just really wanted to make sure that the board understood that as the community is learning about this project, there has been some concerns around the surrounding area. We have a very beloved neighborhood, the East Side neighborhood, that is going to be impacted by this project. We have a possible elementary school that is being proposed by Riverside Unified School District, the East Side Elementary School, that could be heavily impacted by this project. And I would just really ask the board to consider these aspects as we look to see how we can partner with Rctc. And one of the things that I'm really excited that I've had a conversation with our city manager and mayor has been about the possibility about an RFP maybe going out, a joint RFP with the City of Riverside and Rctc. And I would really like to see how we could explore this more, as well as make sure that we explore all of the adaptive reuse scenarios that really could impact the historic preservation of one of the buildings that we're looking at. So just really wanted to come here today and mention some of my concerns, mainly about transparency, and that we make sure that when we have these community meetings that we are really being open and supportive to listening to residents' concerns, as this is of course their neighborhood and their homes. But just wanted to take a moment today to bring this attention to the Rctc board, and also want to say that as the elected representative of this area, if any of you want to meet with me to discuss this item, I'd be more than happy to put aside that time. Thank you, Chairman. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Councilwoman Cervantes. Duly noted, and we will follow up. Thank you so much. Are there any other public comments in the queue?
I am not seeing any other hands raised.
Neither am I, and I'll be leaning on you, Lisa, to help me out because I want to make sure I don't miss anyone here along the
I
way.
apologize. I do see another hand from Miguel Lujano.
Miguel, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, sir. How are you? How is everybody today?
I'm doing well, Miguel. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, board, for allowing us to make public comment. You know, as a resident of the East Side, having grown up here in the neighborhood, and I'm so sorry, I'm homesick today. But this was a very important meeting. I didn't want to miss my opportunity to make this comment. You know, to what the council member was mentioning, Councilmember Cervantes, this area is an underserved community, low income community, the East Side. The development project that was noted is one that our residents have been asking for quite some time to revisit, to make sure that it is an appropriate development to what the future surrounding projects are going to be. We're going to have an elementary school there. We want to make sure that their voices are heard, that they're not put off to the side. And right now, that's how they're feeling. I've engaged several times with our residents and neighbors and community members, and I've got to tell you, we need to do more. It's our duty as a board when we're making decisions like this, things that will impact future generations to come. It's our duty to make sure we go above and beyond, to make sure that their voices are heard, that we did everything possible to make sure that this project was envisioned the way it was most appropriate. And so I asked that the board, please take this time to come to meet with these residents a little bit more. And I ask you board members, if you have a chance, please come out and join us, hear what these residents are saying. This is a very important project to us. And just because we are a low income community, it does not mean that we should be thrown aside. So that's my comment. I hope that you all have a wonderful day, and I'm going back to bed now. Take care.
Well, thank you, Miguel. Points are well taken, duly noted. As you know, we can't take action or discuss the matter, but we will follow up. Thank you so much for calling in. Is there anyone else in the queue for public comment? I don't see anybody. Lisa, do you?
I do not see any other hands raised.
Okay. With that said, we're going to move forward. Are there any additions or revisions to the agenda?
No, sir.
Thank you. Consent calendar. Moving right along. Is there any commissioner that'd like to pull an item from the consent calendar? And if not, is there a motion?
Calamasa moves.
Second. Canyon Lake seconds.
Okay, Calamasa moves. That's Linda Molina. And who seconded?
Multiple. Cathedral City was one.
Okay, Cathedral City. We'll go Cathedral City. Reverend Gregory, thank you so much. Lisa, can we go ahead and do a roll call?
District 1,
District 1, yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
Banning,
Yes.
Beaumont,
Yes.
Blythe, Calamasa,
Yes.
Canyon Lake,
Aye.
Cathedral City,
Yes.
Coachella, Corona,
Aye.
Desert Hot Springs,
Aye.
Eastvale,
Aye.
Hemet,
Yes.
Indian Wells,
Yes.
Indio,
Aye.
Arupa Valley,
Yes.
La Quinta,
Aye.
Lake Elsinore,
Aye.
Menifee,
Is aye.
Marina Valley, Marietta,
Here.
Norco,
Yes.
Palm Desert,
Yes.
Palm Springs,
Aye.
Paris,
Yes.
Rancho Mirage,
Yes.
Riverside,
Aye.
San Jacinto, Temecula,
Abstaining as I was not present.
Wildemar.
Aye.
Going back to Marietta, was that an aye vote on the consent calendar?
Actually, I am an alternate filling in for our mayor who has now been, Scott Vinton is now gone. And so I probably will abstain as well.
Thank you. The
Thank you.
consent calendar passes.
Oh, from Marina Valley was aye.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's consent calendar item 6A through 6E. Thank you, everyone, for that. At this time, going on to action items, staff is requesting to present agenda items 7 and 8 concurrently. So I'm just going to go ahead and pass this forward to John Stanford.
Good morning, Chairman Perez. Thank you. We are doing these two presentations as one, as well as the two items as one, even though they have different recommendations and serve different purposes. They rely on the same data set, so it's easier to present them as a whole as one rather than doing each separately, which is why we're asking to do that. This is a regular time of year where we come to you to present our revised revenue projections for the current fiscal year, and also to unveil our revenue projections for next fiscal year. The main reason we do this is the projections, especially for our sales tax programs, are especially important as part of our budget process. We are already in the middle of our budget process right now internally, and we'll be bringing a number of budget items to you over the next few months This item essentially is the bedrock there of what our Measure A and LTF projections will be in terms of revenue heading forward. The other thing we do as part of this item, which is item 7, is to update our current projections to bring them current to what our actuals are, what we are seeing during this fiscal year. The good news, I know the chairman mentioned good times and bad. In terms of sales taxes, in spite of the pandemic, we're seeing a lot of good times. We now have about 18 months of data during the pandemic, and sales tax revenue in Riverside County continues to climb. And it seems to climb much more than many of our neighbors. We have a very diversified sales tax base, and we're seeing the fruits of that. We're managing to move forward. And this particular item will give you some of the details behind that, as well as the actual presentations. So let's move to the first slide. When developing our revenue projections, we consider revenue trends, historical data from prior years, economic data that's provided by our sales tax consultant, and updated forecasts from UCR as well as other available information. The information is analyzed in order to develop projections for 3 revenue sources, and I'm going to concentrate on 2 of them for the most part today. First of all is Measure A. This is our local half-cent sales tax program. It's levied based on the place of consumption. It's a half-cent. It's approved by Riverside County voters. The local transportation fund is part of the overall state sales tax. It's a 1/4 cent, primarily funds transit programs. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail. It's based on the point of sale. I'll also spend a few minutes discussing our projections for the Western Riverside County TUMF program. It's a smaller amount of money and harder to predict, but we want to add that in part of this presentation as well. So let's go to the next slide. In terms of how we do all of this, there are a number of economic categories that we look at. We receive an analysis of our revenues for Measure A from our sales tax consultant, which is Avenue Insights and Analytics. They provide the commission with an executive summary, which includes a thorough discussion of economic activity and from each economic category. We will bring a presentation based on our most recent revenues at a future commission meeting, either in February or March. The most recent data that we have is from the 3rd quarter of the 2021 calendar year. So you can see this, this chart and other charts in the presentation cover the last 8 benchmark years. Sorry about that, through the 3rd quarter of each calendar year. There are 6 economic sales tax revenue categories. And as you can see, the general retail, the blue line on top, that is a combination of retail stores as well as internet sales from Amazon and the like. The next category, auto sale, transportation, includes auto sales and sales at service stations. We also have some other categories, food products, which is restaurants and markets, construction, business to business, as well as miscellaneous other revenue that we receive. As you can see, all of these lines are tending to trend upwards in the last few years, particularly that top line in terms of general retail. As we go to the next slide, these trends, these economic categories are then broken out a little bit more. And now we have 11 different segments that are based on the previous 6 categories I showed. These are our top 11 segments that make up about 75% of our overall Measure A revenue. Kind of want to direct your attention to the yellow line there, which on the left is 4 lines down, but on the right has now gone to the top. It's titled Miscellaneous Retail. That essentially is a a lot of internet sales that have, as you've seen, exploded in the last 2 years. Part of that is due to a court decision known as the Wayfair decision, as well as state legislation that allocates that funding. You can see we're continuing to have strong auto sales, restaurants, and other various categories here. Again, they're all trending upwards, although you see a couple of dips, like in the orange line. That was in the midst of the beginning of the pandemic with restaurants. It went down. You can see that it's now starting to rebound as well. So this gives you an idea of the various trend going on in Riverside County. Again, what's good about this is we do have a number of various categories that are all healthy right now. We have a diversified economy, and that's a positive sign. So what I've done in those previous 2 slides is kind of give you an idea of where our revenues come from, what sort of categories and economic segments they are generated in terms of sales tax. This next slide, as we move on, talks about our Measure A revenue allocations. Measure A is the biggest part of this, and it's important to take a look at this because it's voter approved in 2002. And it includes a return to source provisions. So where sales taxes that are generated in Western Riverside County stay in Western County. Same is true in the Coachella Valley and the Palo Verde Valley as well. So the very first thing that happens is the sales tax comes in, they are split by the geographic areas. And next thing we do is within each area is we then allocate them into the various programs or funding components that are listed here on the list. This is all in our Measure A voter approved expenditure plan. This kind of speaks to the importance of having revised and accurate projections. As you can see in Western County, 29% go to local street and roads. That's the county in your cities that have received this money for local street and road projects. Same in the Coachella Valley where the number's a little higher, 35%. Being able to provide updated information, especially when times are good, it's important to do that, and that's one of the purposes of this item. So let's go to our next slide, which kind of talks to our projection versus our actuals. When we originally made our revenue projections for fiscal year 2022, which is the one we're in now, we used information that we had based on what was happening with COVID. And we did that in each economic category. And this shows those original 6 categories. We show the average monthly revenue for the 2020 actuals. Those are the gold bars on the left. The brown bar in the middle are the actuals. And the blue bar on the right for each category, this is essentially what our original projection was. In each case, we were surprised by the huge jumps that we saw in the previous fiscal year. So we projected a little bit lower. Could this be sustainable? But based on this data, it appears that our projections were very conservative. We have not seen a decline. We are trying to be as conservative and prudent with our projections as we can. Although we've seen some great growth there between 2020 and 2021, our 22 projection was higher than in 2020, but lower than our actuals in 2021. And as we go to the next slide, you'll see how that shakes out in real numbers. This chart shows Measure A and LTF with our actual 2021 revenues, the change in our projections, and then our proposed projections for next year. Originally, at this time for Measure A, we expected revenues of about $195 million. Well, we then adjusted those revenues to 210 when we went to our budget process for this fiscal year. And now as part of our revision, we think we will generate $250 million in Measure A revenue for this current fiscal year. We are still trying to be very prudent for next fiscal year, projecting a total of $255 million. Although we're seeing great growth and the county continues to grow, it's prudent to be conservative as possible in doing this. The next category, LTF, that's the quarter-cent sales tax, very similar growth in those revenues as well. So let's go to the next slide to talk about allocations. For Measure A, revenues are allocated to the 3 geographic areas, as I mentioned before, and this is outlined in our sales tax expenditure plan. They fluctuate a little bit year to year, and the actuals are allocated based on collection. But in terms of our projection for next fiscal year, we're looking at Western County receiving 80% of the sales tax revenue in Riverside County, 19.5% to the Coachella Valley, and the Palo Verde Valley receiving 0.5%. No matter what the fluctuation, since the overall pie is growing, this is all talks to significant growth in all of the geographic areas in the county. For LTF, it's a portion and a process that complies with state law. The vast majority of our funding, about 93%, goes to public transit. We also have an amount, SB 821, that is for bicycle and pedestrian programs. It's 2% of the overall money. Since we are expecting a significant increase in that in the LTF pie this year, and there were some projects that were unable to be funded in our most recent 821 call, we will bring an agenda item most likely next month to see if we can fund a few more projects on that list that fell just short. So in this case, more revenue will eventually result in more projects. Let's go to the next slide. It's unique to Western Riverside County. As I mentioned, TUMF is somewhat hard to project. Our actuals from the previous fiscal year were $27 million. We decided to keep our original projection the same. We weren't sure what the impacts of COVID are. We tend to receive these receipts a little bit later than what we get from the state. The state usually has a 2 to 3 month delay. This can be a little harder to predict. Bottom line is we're expecting about $30 million in Western Riverside County TUMF revenue for this fiscal year, and we want to move forward with that same projection for next fiscal year. Let's go to the next slide, please. What we are starting with today is essentially the first step for many steps that we're going to take as part of the budget over the next few months and throughout the rest of the fiscal year leading up to next fiscal year. Today, we seek the board's approval of the current fiscal year mid-year revised projections and the revenue projections for next fiscal year. With that, there are a number of budget adjustments for this fiscal year that take place as part of this particular action. As we develop next year's budget, we'll use the revenue projections for next year, and we'll present a number of budget presentations before now and June when you do the final approval for next year's budget. The other thing we're going to do is advise our local jurisdictions, as those are transit operators, your cities and the county, of our revised revenues for this year. This will mean additional state and local, essentially local street and road money going to your cities and counties, as well as transit funding going to our transit providers. The other thing we'll keep doing is this is a continual process where we're always monitoring and updating the information we get to review the trends. And if things do change in a big way, we are always here to come back and keep you informed of how that happens. Let's go to the next slide. These are a quick summary of the staff recommendations as part of this item. For the current year mid-year projections, which is agenda item 7, we have the essential recommendations for the 3 funding programs, approving the budget adjustments in order to do that for all 3 of them as well. For agenda item 8, we're essentially looking for your approval of the actual projections that we have come up with. Again, we will come back, and after we do the budget, there might be updated numbers then, and then we'll update it again in January of next year to keep you informed of everything. Let's go to the next slide. And before I end my presentation, I want to acknowledge our Deputy Director of Finance, Michelle Cisneros. She put together this presentation and the staff reports. Been happy to come here and pinch hit for her in terms of the presentation. She's doing a great job for us, has done for many years, and usually gives this presentation. I just want to thank her for allowing me to sound somewhat intelligent giving this presentation. So thank you. If we have any questions, I'll be happy to take them at this time.
Thank you, John, for your presentation. And before I ask commissioners for a motion in a second, or ask commissioners if they have any questions, is there any public comment on the item, Lisa?
I'm not seeing any hands raised from the public.
I don't see any either. Thank you so much. I see Commissioner Harnick's hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to request that you send the PowerPoint deck out, if you would.
Be happy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Commissioner Hoffman. I think you're on mute, Commissioner.
Right, there it is. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Chairman. And John, that was an excellent report. And one of the things, this is more of a comment. We saw a large increase in fund in the amounts. And I want to caution, because if most of us that build stuff realize that a year ago we were at a 3% consumer price index, and now we're sitting at 7.9, and that's the latest information coming from the U.S. Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics. And even though we saw an increase, I know in my city or any of the other areas, we're seeing about a 30% increase in the cost of doing construction. And I see Mr. Sanford shaking his head correctly. It is. So even though these numbers are high, I hope we don't get a false sense that we're doing all that great, because the cost of everything is raised tremendously. So even though the numbers look good, the costs are gone up too. So just think about that when we do projects in the near future. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for my time.
Thank you for that comment. It also reflects why we're trying to be pretty conservative with the projections going forward as well. That's very, very good comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. Are there any other questions or points from my colleagues?
I see a hand raised from Supervisor Washington.
Supervisor Washington, good morning to you.
Chairman, yeah. I just want some clarity. John presented on items 7 and 8. This is just the revenue side. This isn't the expenditure side. So I think, John, your point is well taken about being conservative on your projections so that we don't plan to spend more money than we will actually have. But it seems to me that an accurate projection is of value as well. And I think you've done, as well as Michelle's done, a pretty good job of doing this. So my ask is for clarity, are we being asked to vote on these together, separately? And I see 7 is fiscal year 21-22, 8 is 22-23.
That was our intent. I think the board can choose to take them separately. In terms of expenditures moving forward, that would be part of our budget process in the next fiscal year as we continue. But I think our original intent was to have one motion to cover both items. But that is, of course, the the pleasure of the board on that.
And so when expenditures come back to us, we'll expect Ted to step forward and weigh in enthusiastically on the expenditure side. I tend to agree. My layman's perspective about costs aligns with perhaps his expertise on that, but we'll have an opportunity to deal with that. And I'd like to go ahead and move items 7 and 8 with staff's recommendations.
Thank you, Supervisor Washington. Before we move forward, Ann, did you want to chime in?
I do. Thank you very much. And just to clarify too, that there will be some increased expenditures under item number 7. We will have some increased expenditures this year to distribute the increased revenue this year to each of our member jurisdictions per the formula. So right now, those, we are making sure we pass through the increased revenues. But as John mentioned, anything related to expenditures for next year outside of local streets and roads will come back in the budget process.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions or thoughts from commissioners?
I'm not seeing any hands raised.
At this point, we have a motion by Supervisor Washington. Is there a second?
I'll go ahead and second.
Thank you, Commissioner Benoit. Could we bundle these two together and do a roll call vote for 7 and 8?
That was my motion, Mr. Chairman, was for 7 and 8.
Okay, thank you so much. Lisa, please call the roll.
Thank you. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
Banning,
Yes.
Beaumont,
Yes.
Blythe, Calamasa,
Yes.
Canyon Lake,
Aye for Canyon Lake.
Cathedral City,
Yes.
Coachella, Corona,
Aye.
Desert Hot Springs,
Aye.
Eastvale,
Aye.
Emmett, yes, Indian Wells,
Yes.
Indio,
Aye.
Karupa Valley,
Yes.
La Quinta,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Aye.
Menifee,
Yes.
Moreno Valley,
Yes.
Marietta,
Yes.
Norco,
Yes.
Palm Desert,
Yes.
Palm Springs,
Aye.
Paris,
Yes.
Rancho Mirage,
Yes.
Riverside,
Yes.
San Jacinto, Temecula,
Aye.
Wildemar.
Aye.
Thank you. Items 7 and 8 pass.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, commissioners. Moving forward with item 9, state and federal legislative update. This is a receive and file. However, I understand that David Knudsen is on.
Yes, good morning, Chair. Good to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
Good morning, Commissioners. Today I will provide you with an update on state and legislative activities. I'll begin with the state update. As you know, the Legislative Analyst's Office previously projected a multi-billion-dollar budget surplus for the 2022-23 budget year. It's no surprise then that over the last several weeks, advocacy groups across the state have been submitting ideas to the governor and to the legislature about where the surplus funds should be spent. Well, Rctc has some great ideas as to where we think those funds should be spent, and that's right here in Riverside County. For the last few weeks, staff has been working with Senator Ochoa Bogue, chair of the Inland Empire State Legislative Caucus, to gain support from the caucus to advocate for a suite of projects that, if funded, would provide immediate relief to the county's transportation network. To make a larger regional impact, we teamed up with SBCTA, who also provided a list of projects to the caucus for funding support. Last Friday, in advance of the governor's budget proposal announcement, members of the IE caucus sent a letter to the leaders of the state Senate, the Assembly, and the governor seeking $2.2 billion for transportation project funding in the Inland Empire, including $875 million for transportation project funding in Riverside County. Today's staff report includes a list of those Riverside County projects. These projects were identified because They underscore the complexity of our regional challenges arising from the nation's supply chain crisis and the region's population growth driven by the state's housing shortage. Having the support from the Inland Empire Caucus is significant. I cannot think of a time in the recent past where the caucus has taken such a public stand on an issue together. And we will continue to work with the senator and other caucus members this year as we seek transportation funds. As commissioners noted in the last commission meeting, we will continue to be visible in our legislative advocacy. Turning now to the state's budget, the Governor Gavin Newsom submitted his 2022-23 state budget proposal on Monday to the legislature. Dubbed the California Blueprint, this $286.4 billion budget proposal is 9% more than last year's budget and includes a $45.7 billion surplus, greater than the LAO's earlier projection, and which the governor noted could change over the next few months. While we're still getting into the details, the governor is looking to make continued investments in fighting COVID-19, climate change, homelessness, and taking on the cost of living, including in the areas of healthcare coverage, building more housing, and support for small businesses. For transportation, the governor has developed a set of transportation priorities and included them in a 5-year infrastructure plan that coincides with the Federal Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. The state's infrastructure plan includes climate resilience, broadband, housing, clean energy, wildfire protection, drought, and the acceleration for zero-emission vehicles funding, along with transportation funding. As I mentioned, we're still getting into the details, but I will mention that there is proposed funding for high-speed rail, transit and rail projects, active transportation, grade separation projects, and port infrastructure. What is likely to make headlines is the governor's proposal to forego the annual inflation adjustment to the per gallon fuel excise tax rate scheduled to occur on July 1st, 2022 as part of SB 1. The intent of this action is to reduce the cost of gasoline for consumers this summer. The annual inflation adjustment would resume by the 2023-24 budget cycle, with the flexibility to delay the adjustment further should economic conditions warrant it. The administration will also examine the potential to backfill local share of reduced revenues on a one-time basis with state highway account funds, an action that could require further backfilling of funds. There will absolutely be continued legislative and stakeholder discussion on this issue in the future. The Legislative Affairs team continues to evaluate the governor's budget proposal and will monitor and engage in the legislative budget subcommittee hearings set to begin next month as needed. We will keep the commission apprised as we learn more. Quickly turning to the federal update, as you know, Congress averted a government shutdown by passing a continuing resolution in December that will keep the government funded until February 18th, 2022, at funding levels set almost a year ago. As the congressional session resumes from the holiday recess, members will work to finalize the FY 2022 appropriations legislation. Finally, staff is evaluating the IIJA and providing feedback to the US DOT on the best ways the bill can be implemented to bring the most benefit. We will follow up as we continue our analysis. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, David, for your presentation. Before I ask my colleagues if there's any questions or thoughts on their behalf, is there any public comment on this item? I don't see
I am
any.
not seeing any hands raised.
Okay.
Oh, from a commissioner.
Okay, so thank you for that report once again, David. I would have to agree that it does seem like the Inland Empire Caucus is much more united and is much more willing to work with us, and rightly so. My only question is, how long ago did we meet, RCTC meet with Mrs. Bogue, Senator Bogue, or anybody from the Inland Empire Caucus? How long ago was that conversation?
We've been working at a staff level for quite some time, and I know that Ann had a conversation with the senator, and I'll let you fill that conversation?
Sure. So the conversation started with a couple of our delegation members, probably in November, and we were invited, we being Rctc staff and San Bernardino County Transportation Authority staff, we were invited to the caucus's meeting in December to present our input on transportation issues and goods movement in the Inland Empire. And they had asked us for a list of projects. So actually from the time we were invited to come to the meeting and when this letter went out, it was probably about 4 weeks or 5 weeks.
Okay.
So it moved pretty quickly, and probably because other areas of the state were starting to gather their caucuses and starting to send in letters. So our caucus clearly decided to act. So they moved pretty quickly from the beginning, probably the end of November around Thanksgiving until January.
Thank you for that clarification. Commissioner Speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had just a quick observation and a question. One, I did notice that the shop funds seem to be a pretty large number, and I wanted to see, I know we have a representative from Caltrans on how that was going to be prioritized, or if that was, I know that wasn't part of our ask, but or at least maybe not directly, but it's a decent number, and I was hoping that we would see some additional projects, at least that were scoped back in 2019, like as in the drop lanes on the 15.
So while I wait to see if Caltrans is going to respond, I will tell you what we are doing. Caltrans and the California Transportation Commission released the draft 2022 SHOP program, which is for consideration for approval by the CTC this spring. We're currently reviewing their proposal. There are some pavement rehabilitation projects included. I think the Temecula Auxiliary Lane is included. They've also included a contribution to the Coachella Valley Multiple Species Habitat Conservation Plan. We are going to be providing a letter commentary on the SHOP and recommend that the auxiliary lanes that had been studied by District 8 for I-15 in the area you're speaking about, Commissioner, be considered for the SHOP. We're also making recommendations for pavement rehabilitation on multiple corridors throughout Riverside County, as well as focus on operational improvements. So while we don't have any control over the SHOP, we are going to be submitting a letter with recommendations that follow along the theme that you're speaking about right now. So we are going to put it on the record.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm very pleased to see all the projects that were submitted as well. I'll have everything crossed.
Thank you, Commissioner Speak. Commissioner Edwards.
Well, I'd just like to offer a word of thanks on behalf of the city of Temecula for the wonderful legislative advocacy, and congratulations on getting the support of the caucus. I think Riverside County wields a big stick, and I think sometimes we don't think of ourselves that way, but we really should. We have a lot to be proud of, and there's so many things going on down here. So thank you on behalf of the city of Temecula.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. Any other comments, questions, thoughts from other commissioners? I don't see any hands raised. That's a receive and file item. And we can move forward with item number 10. At this point, moving towards appointment of executive committee members, I'm going to call on Lisa to speak to this, as well as legal counsel, in hopes that the process is smooth.
We're all hoping. Thank you, Chair. This item is before you for the cities of Banning, Beaumont, Calimesa, Canyon Lake, Eastvale, Hemet, Lake Elsinore, Menifee, Norco, Paris, San Jacinto, and Wildemar to appoint a new representative to the executive committee. In January of 2021, Commissioner Lloyd White was selected as a representative of those cities. However, with his election as second vice chair of the commission last month, a new vacancy has been created. So I will now turn it over to legal counsel, who will explain the caucus process.
Thank you, Lisa. Commission members of the cities of Banning, Beaumont, Calamasa, Canyon Lake, Eastvale, Hemet, Lake Elsinore, Menifee, Norco, Paris, San Jacinto, and Wildemar will be given time to caucus and appoint a new representative to fill Commissioner White's unexpired term. The representative will fill the vacancy for the remainder of his term, which is 1 year. Members of the public are invited to join the breakout session and observe the process. If there are any members of the public who wish to join that session, please raise your hand and you will be added to that breakout session.
Thank you. We've created a breakout room with Zoom with those cities that were mentioned. I'm going to go ahead and open that room now for you to join. We'll give you a few minutes to caucus. There's a button that says leave breakout session. When you're finished, come on out and have a spokesperson announce your appointee. I'll come in and check on you in a few minutes if it's been a while, just to make sure that you're okay and not stuck in the room.
And then
So I'll open the room now.
And in the meanwhile, Lisa, those of us that are not going to be in caucus, we will just basically wait on the caucus to come back. About
No
how much
pressure.
time?
Aren't you going to sing and dance for us?
Yeah, can we have some music while we wait?
Yeah, really.
About how much time we're talking about, Lisa?
It's not stated how long they can take, but they usually do it very quickly.
Okay. All right. By all means, caucus members.
I think Supervisor Perez, I think it's, you said you were going to sing a tune.
I wish I could. As you can tell, my voice is in and out.
There you go.
It's a little rough right now for whatever reason, but no, I can't sing at all. But I welcome anybody else.
Got to respect the man's honesty, right?
Absolutely.
I'd just like to clarify for the record that I do not see any members of the public who have expressed interest in joining that breakout session.
Thank you for that, Lisa.
I know that Commissioner Edwards has a beautiful voice. I think she's sung before, but I don't know if she's willing to grace us today.
Me, la, 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 la. No, thanks.
Come on, Marianne, sing us a Disney tune.
I could do Little Mermaid for you.
Yeah.
Really? I think I don't want to spoil anybody's lunch, so.
What's the weather like in Riverside or in the west end of the county?
Partly cloudy, overcast in Temecula, with just enough sun showing through to give you a sunburn if you're on the golf course.
It's not too bad over here.
Marianne, is it sunshine through the mist?
Loosely translated, I think Pachanga is too polite to tell us that our lifelong interpretation of the Temecula's slogan or what it means. So they've said something similar to that. Yes, where the sun shines. It could be totally different than that for all we know. But
I'm going to
to
stick with that. I'm going to stick with that interpretation of the word Temecula.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much.
Northwest of the county, it's partly clouded, 63 degrees. We're looking to get in the high 70s.
Oh, God. You're hired.
Mayor Bill Zimmerman, is your hand up?
It is, thank you. So I just wanted to report out from our caucus that it was a unanimous decision to recommend and nominate Commissioner Ben Benoit from Wildemar to serve on the executive committee, and I think everybody supported that.
Thank you for that report, Commissioner Zimmerman. Is everyone back on?
Looks like we have everyone back.
Okay, well, at this point, what would be the next step here, Lisa?
Steve, we don't need a vote on this, correct? We just need their appointment.
That is correct. There's no commission action, so we are complete with this agenda item.
Thank you.
All right, well, congratulations, Commissioner Benoit. Appreciate your willingness to serve once again on the executive committee. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy to rejoin.
And there were no items pulled from the consent calendar. So at this point, if we get the report from Ann, our executive director.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, commissioners. Happy New Year. It's good to see you all, though it would be nice to see you all in person. I look forward to doing that soon, hopefully. I have a couple of items to update on. First off, next week, the WTS Inland Empire chapters. So WTS is an organization that fosters and encourages and mentors women in the transportation industry, but they also are a great organization of transportation professionals within the Inland Empire. It's the annual meeting next week that will be virtual, but I'm really pleased to announce that Riverside has done quite well in this year's annual awards. The Innovative Transportation Solution of the Year award is going to the 15 Express Lane project that we opened this year. The Secretary Ray LaHood Award, which is awarded to an outstanding male professional in the Inland Empire who exhibits leadership and demonstrates support for encouragement of women's participation in the transportation field, is going to our very own Erin Hake. So congratulations, Erin. We're very proud of you. And Employer of the Year award is going to Riverside Transit Agency. So this is going to be a big year for awards for Riverside County Transportation at WTS's annual event. So congratulations to the team. Second update is that California State Transportation Agency Secretary David Kim has announced his resignation. This is his last week as the Secretary of Transportation for California. When Secretary Kim came to California, his family remained in Virginia, and he has decided that it's important to be back on the East Coast with his family. So this will be his last week as secretary. I just wanted to publicly acknowledge his partnership and friendship. He's been a terrific partner to RCTC, whether it's been in the Secretary of Transportation position, his undersecretary position at U.S. Department of Transportation in Washington, D.C., and going way back to his days at LA Metro. So we wish Secretary Kim very, very well and look forward to seeing him in the future. Another update, we have completed our first year as managing agency for the Riverside Conservation Authority. We've accomplished, we gave an update at the RCA board meeting on Monday. We've accomplished all of the initial transition items that had been planned for this year. We've made a lot of progress. We've been focusing on streamlining and efficiencies, and you'll be seeing in the coming year where we'll be having even more consolidation of not only policies and procedures, but also of consulting contracts, trying to make sure that we're being as efficient and effective as possible. So it's been a good first year. There's still a lot of work to do, but I think the first year has gone really well, and we appreciate the opportunity to serve RCA. And then finally, comments were made earlier, public comments were made earlier today regarding the Riverside Downtown Station project. I assure you that the RCTC team is doing everything we can to ensure a lot of public outreach. Not only did we have 2 public hearings in December, but we've also met with the neighborhood, I think 3 times over the past 7 months, as well as a multitude of neighborhood interest group and community interest groups. We've met with the Riverside City Council last month and encouraged their participation in the public process. The environmental document is currently available for public review and comment. Comments are due on February 3rd, and we are encouraging the public as well as the city to provide their comments to the commission so that the commission can make a decision on whether or not to proceed with this project. So I assure you that we take the comments made earlier today to heart, and we will continue to foster our relationship with the city of Riverside. And I just wanted to reaffirm that we did have a planned solution of coming to the commission with a request to do a joint RFP with the city of Riverside for community development, that it would involve a community visioning process. So I assure you, we are very actively engaged on the Riverside Downtown Station project. As a part of this public process, it will come back to this commission for discussion and conversation, and you will be provided all of the feedback and comments from the neighborhood and community and the city council, so you can make a decision whether or not we proceed with the project. That completes my report, and I look forward to seeing you all in February. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann, for your report. I think moving forward with the comments that were made earlier, definitely would like to be helpful in that, and maybe we set up a couple of community meetings on the east end with staff. Potentially that's maybe the way. Something's getting lost along the way. I don't know why, but we just got to figure that out and make sure that we're there present. Commissioner, speak.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to take a moment to both personally and on behalf of the city coroner thank my colleagues and particularly the staff and our executive director and Dave Thomas for what an amazing job getting the 91 corridor operations project up and running in really record time, from basically from a nothing to a project where people are driving on it this past week has been truly a highlight of my career. It's been just amazing, and I hope that staff sees it that way as well. I've been monitoring the traffic every single day that it's been open, and it's been a lovely shade of green the entire time. So I just want to say thank you to staff, thank you to this commission for prioritizing that project, because it does affect not only the city of Corona, but all the Western Riverside County. It is the lifeblood of the Western Riverside County. Those folks that transition and goods movement and our residents move back and forth between that county, Riverside County, and LA and Orange County. So again, thank you so much, and thank you from myself and my colleagues and from the residents of Corona. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Speak. Are there any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Hoffman.
Yeah, and I like to tap onto Wes's comments, and I really appreciate Rctc coming to our city council meeting and explaining to them the 91 closures for that weekend, along with the I-15. And just like Wes said, this for our end of the county, this is a big plus. It's helped out traffic, and he's right. It's flowing green, and this is a good example of when the county and the state and all these entities get together and do a project right. And for that, I thank Ann and your staff for keeping our residents informed of all the closures and everything we did. Good job. I just want to say good job.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. Any other commissioners that have any comments? I don't see any. Okay. At this point, we're moving on to closed session. Legal counsel, can you announce?
Yes, Chair. We have one closed session item. It's a conference with the real property negotiator, and we will be convening into closed session to discuss one property.
After closed session, can we adjourn from closed session, or do we need to come back?
There is not expected to be any reportable action, so we can adjourn from closed session.
Okay, good. Okay, well then we're moving on to closed session. Is there a certain link or?
I'll be opening the breakout room now. Okay. Stand by.
See you all in a bit.